Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Geek Talk, where we give entrepreneurs expert knowledge. My name is Sabrina Lowery, and I am affectionately known as the Tech Evangelist, where I'm going to give I'm not wasting any time tonight. We're going to just go right into the introduction of our guests. No sponsor talk, none of that. We're going to get right to the business tonight. We have a very, very special guest this evening with us on a very, very important topic for all of our entrepreneur viewers. And I want you all to let us know where you are coming into the broadcast from for all of our live streamers. If you happen to catch the replay on one of your favorite podcast channels, be sure to put some comments. You never know, we may respond. Also, you can check us out every Tuesday live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. These podcasts are brought to you and intended to give you some resources, some new connections, a little insight, and of course, some entertainment. Each Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm inviting guests to come on to my podcast so that we can provide you not only with topics that range anywhere from starting a business to sustaining a business to building legacy to any of the resources you may need as you grow in life, not just in business. So, a little personal and professional development happening here on Geek Talk. If this is your first time here with me on the broadcast, I have over 30 years of IT experience, and I am the founder and chief technology officer of Sabrina Lowery Enterprises, LLC. Go over to my website to learn more all about my products and services at sabrinalowery.com. So let me get Sibyl's introduction here and bio. We are going to bring her into the broadcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to welcome Miss Sibyl Slade. Sibyl is the founder of Integrivest Wealth Advisors, helping first generation executives, professionals, and business owners build sustainable, multi generational wealth with clarity and confidence. With over 3 decades in financial services, she is known for her non judgmental, client centered approach that blends technical expertise with real life decision making. Sibyl is the recipient of the 2024 Investment News Commonwealth Financial Network Award for Excellence in Philanthropy and Community Service, and is a member of Investopedia's Advisors Council. Sibyl empowers high achievers to move from hustling to holdings, aligning money, ownership, and legacy with purpose. Welcome to the podcast, Sibyl.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you. Thank you. And as I look at your acronym, the Geek podcast, I'm all about entrepreneurship, but I also am geeky too, right? Coming out of the Federal Reserve, I'm always interested in data. I'm intrigued by data. So, I have another little analogy for geek, but definitely it's all about information because all data is information. And so I'm always intrigued by it, but definitely as entrepreneurs, data means a lot, right? It gives us insight, foresight, and it helps us to thrive. So thank you for having me on your show. And I'm ready to dive in.
Awesome. Awesome. And as a reminder for everyone, we are in our 3rd week of celebrating Women's History Month. So our conversation is not only for women. You may know a woman who you want to celebrate and support. Just tag her, tell her, share this podcast. She may be intrigued with the conversation. And you can find us live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We'll do a little behind the scenes teens action a little later on. So, Sybil, let's just jump right in. The conversation is going to be all about leading the change and women who are shaping sustainable futures with their business. So, before we go into where we are currently, I want you to tell the people all about Sybil and maybe what is your superpower? Something they can't find out about you on Dr. Google.
Oh, wow. So let me tell you about me. I'll just say this. As you alluded to in my bio, I've spent 3 decades essentially looking at the wealth gap. So I've turned it over on its head, looked at it inside out, and I come to realize at the end of the day, a lot of us just have not had that conversation that involves the wealth framework. We've had financial literacy out the wazoo, and not that there's not a need for it. There's still a need for it, but that only gets us so far with our personal finance. But when it comes to actually building wealth and no longer chasing income, but creating a legacy, then we have to have the wealth framework. And so that is why I am in this space, really, again, to help first generation high performers to be able to have financial clarity and confidence around their financial decisions and making sure that, hey, we're creating financial freedom for ourselves. We have now created the power to live the life that we want to live. We've created that choice or that option for ourselves just by getting involved in wealth building. The superpower that I have, and it's interesting that many that are entrepreneurs or business owners eventually discover this. My background is actually in planning and economic development. I've just been using it in banking and finance and financial services all this time. So although I am into wealth management, I always view everything through the lens of what's going on in the economy, the micro and the macro. I am able to have foresight about trends that I've seen over and over again, except maybe this time there's a different nuance. And so I call that my superpower because I really, while there's traditional frameworks around wealth management, at the end of the day, it doesn't translate to what it looks like on Main Street. It only covers what we're covering for Wall Street. And so for me to be able to distill this down to Main Street so that it's manageable and so that people have, again, much more clarity, I make complex things simple for my clients. And so that's what I'm here for, to be able to empower my clients to be able to understand how to engage in the wealth management conversation.
I love
That's a
that.
mouthful. Sorry.
Yes, no, don't apologize. That is what we came here to do, right? So we are here to learn more about you and your skills, your talents, your services, and your products, Sybil. So no apologies necessary. We want our audience to get to know you and what it is that you stand for and believe in. And wealth is a topic that a lot of us don't get to talk a lot about. So I'm honored to have you here on my platform, and not just to have this conversation, but to actually educate and inform, provide a few resources for those that don't get to have conversations like this. So let's clip that. Okay.
All right. All right.
All right, I'm going to segue into our next topic, and let's go into the backstory, right? You mentioned just a smidge about your previous career before entrepreneurship. Let's go back before the Federal Reserve, right? Let's talk about maybe what it was that you dreamt about, even if it wasn't entrepreneurship, right? That leadership journey. You've got several accolades in your credentials that we mentioned earlier. So, what was it that drove you? Were there any setbacks or obstacles, or maybe there was someone in your life that influenced you to go after such great things as a leader?
So, I'll have to be honest, and it does somewhat tie back to entrepreneurship, ironically. So when I look at my grandfathers, I had one grandfather who was this master carpenter, never had any technical knowledge around it or formal education around it, should I say, but he could build anything. So that's my paternal grandfather. And of course, as a result of that, many of my uncles, including my dad, that talent was just kind of embedded in them. And then on my maternal side, my grandfather had a business. So he was an entrepreneur. And so for me, I come from two lineages of people who were entrepreneurs. And let me back up to also say, I have to give this context. My parents are World War II generation people. So I'm saying to you, they were on the cusp of slavery. And so for them to operate businesses before the 40 acres and a mule actually happened is also phenomenal, right? That they were able to do this in that type of climate. So I think a lot of the natural or innate abilities that I have around resilience and being able to, I would say, emerge, is because of my ancestors. And so they were very intentional about passing certain things forward to us. Now I'm going to fast forward to my daddy. My daddy was very influential in my life. As a child, and I still laugh about this to today, as a child, my dad always made me introduce myself to people, whether they were adult, child, whoever, tell them something about myself and what I was doing. So I was always able to communicate with people on all levels because my daddy forced me to do that. As a child, I stayed in trouble in school for talking too much in class. So I've always been a talker, always been able to talk to people across all levels of the economic strata. If you're in Atlanta, from bankhead to buckhead, I can have a conversation and be comfortable in any of those rooms. So honestly, I think that is what cultivated. It was what my dad saw in me and he nurtured and he forced it. I kind of hated it when I was little. I always had to talk to people. I wanted to go play, but no, he'd bring me over and I had to talk to people. And so honestly, I think that is where that whole leadership thing came in. And so I'm not afraid to voice myself in certain rooms. I feel like any room I walk into, I belong in. Whether people receive me or not, the fact that I'm there, I belong there.
Yes, I know the feeling, Sybil. And thank you so much for sharing that context because, I was not raised with my father. I was raised by a single mother who was 16 years old. And so there was never that male role model figure that pushed me, guided me, gave me that wisdom, right? And so I always seemed to figure, who gave me that entrepreneurial spirit? Who gave me that drive to be a leader? And I think it was just me being an only child. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was me always having to fend for myself, do by myself, and those things. And so when it comes to that, it led me to always wanting more. Right? Meaning a better job, more income, more for my children, more for my own future and legacy. But until I got into the role in entrepreneurship, my corporate jobs were not teaching me that foundation and that principle and that mindset. So let's talk about mindset a little bit because I'm always looking for those nuggets and those gems and those resources that just kind of motivate us and keep us grounded and focused. Tell our audience a little bit about what do you do to stay motivated and grounded? Is it someone or something or someone's and some things?
So there's a lot of things, and that evolved over time too. So let me just be honest about that. I would say early on in my career, I had some champions, right, that kind of motivated me, right? Again, I talk to anybody, right? So I had some champions that really motivated me. And so they created space for me to become who I am professionally. And that comes back from that corporate world. And they were people who did not look like me. right? So I learned early, and that's in my 20s. I learned early about social capital and the importance of it. And so that's what allowed me to cultivate and nurture these relationships with champions. Now, over time, that evolved. And so I'll be honest, once my children became adults, they began to motivate me, right? My oldest son, I actually grew up with him because I was a shotgun bride when I had my first set of kids. So I grew up with him. And so uh, we motivated each other. In fact, I feel like every time that I was pregnant, I was on somebody's college campus. Like there was something about education and carrying a child around. So as my kids became adults, they motivated me. And now I have grandchildren. They are my motivation. But the ultimate strand, the through line through all of that has actually been my faith. And it evolved with every evolution, every generation that I spoke of. My faith grew stronger and stronger because I was able to see all of the things that I was able to overcome that people would have thought I would not have overcome. And so having that faith as a through line and seeing those results over and over again, and then being able to plant that seed in the next generation so that we could break, I don't want to use this word, we use it so often. So I could break generational curses. There were things that I said not on my watch, that my faith caused me to take a different walk from maybe where I started with the rest of, other family members out of my nuclear family. I was much more strategic about what I wanted the outcome to be for myself and for my children.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate. I can definitely relate to that. I can relate to becoming a mommy on a college campus times two. I can relate to not having the support from those I knew, liked, and trusted, including my ex at that time. I can remember moving to a new city for that corporate job that brought me here to the ATL, and I was scared. I knew I had to make it. I knew I needed to make enough income to pay my own rent, my own car note. These were big things for a 21-year-old mom with two children living in a state she did not know anyone. And so for those reasons, I was very focused, even in corporate America, with the way that I saved or the way that I made sure that I was putting into 401k. You understand, right? That's that next piece, because as you said, was it about working for me? No, it was not. It was for working for those children. And now I too am a grandmother. So we got to focus on those things a little bit more, regardless of what stage we're in, and kind of be that forward thinking and that future thinker, instead of just always doing something in the moment off of, a whim or, ooh, I just felt like it today. No, wealth building requires planning. And so I'm going to put that tip in the chat. And so let's just expand on that part of our conversation, Sybil.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has to be intentional. So here's another transparent moment. Remember, I told you my parents were World War II generation. So my mom believed in education. She loved education. So she never was able to finish a degree. She got the government job. The government job was the thing that generation got that kind of pushed them into the middle class. Same thing with my dad. They worked for the post office. My dad was former military. I was the first generation college graduate in my family. So that's why I'm so attached to the first generation. And so for me, when I decided to leave the post office, because I started the path that they were on. When I decided to leave the post office, I remember my mom saying to me, "You're gonna leave that good government job to go work at the Federal Reserve in the bank?" But I had a vision when I went there, and I just knew that I couldn't keep sorting mail by zip code, by memory. It was just mindless task to me, although it was important. It was good money, right? I had benefits, but it didn't fulfill me. And so for me, it wasn't just about financial stability. I still had to have something to fulfill me. When I graduated college, mind you, my dad never gave me a pencil, pen, never bought a notepad, although he's the one that taught me leadership skill. He didn't support me going to college. I got tuition reimbursement from the Fed. When I graduated, my dad stood up and cried. I've only seen him cry twice. First time I was in labor with my first son. Second time is when I graduated college. He said, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. So I gave them room to believe that everything that they had sown in us finally came to fruition. I'm the baby child. I have boomer siblings, so I'm the baby child. And so, again, that whole intentionality is very important. Like you can change the narrative for your family literally by being intentional and making that next generation understand how important it is to keep us moving forward. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I'll just tell you that's the way we see things here in my little family lineage.
Absolutely. I believe also because I had the women that were the leaders of the households for the most part, right? I grew up with my grandmother. My grandmother had 13 siblings. I believe 9 of them were living as I grew up over the years, right? So when you think about the number of female versus male led households, meaning who was the homeowner, who was the breadwinner, who was working in corporate, who was an entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. For me, in my lifetime, it was a strong Black woman. That's what I
Mhm,
remember,
mhm,
right? But then I'll go
mhm.
back. My grandmother's generation, my mother, we were all homeowners. Homeowner. What is my intention for my granddaughters coming behind me? Home ownership. But how do we get to that, Sybil? It is with discipline and intention. And so I did put that in the chat for our audience. I want to clip that because I think that's a very important tip and some wisdom that will help our audience tonight. So let's segue our conversation with a little bit of some Women's History Month celebrating, because I know that you have penned your first book. I would love for us to go into the conversation and talk about how you decided to write your new book, Sybil. From hustling
Yes, yes.
to
So
holding,
actually,
ladies and gentlemen.
yes, turning your business into wealth. And so for me, I'll tell you, although I knew this book was in me and people kept saying, oh, you need to write the book. And I was like, going into the belly of the whale, Jonah, I just was not trying to write a book. I'm busy trying to do these other things, right? But as 2025 began to roll in, and I saw the numbers of people who were being laid off, and particularly women. And if you remember the number, there was a whole stat around 318,000 women, Black women, being laid off, whether it was government or private sector. I knew then I needed to write the book. Why? Because remember, I told you a while back, every time we have economic cycles, I see certain things, it's just a different nuance. So, usually, when we have a downturn in the economic cycle, it's harder for us to get back on our feet as women, and especially women of color. So, I knew I needed to write the book because we tend to go into entrepreneurship because our rehiring cycle for employment sometimes is 12 to 18 months. So we do gig work, gig economy, entrepreneurship, and all of those things. And many of us who come out the corporate sector will go to consulting, and not by choice, but by force, right? Out of necessity for income. So I wanted to be able to get this book out there quickly last year so that people will really think through what it takes to become an entrepreneur, to create an entity, how to use these tools to be able to create enterprise value in the business that they launched. So that is why I wrote the book. again, because if there's anything that I could do to soften the blow, and if you're in Georgia, we're still growing at the seams in the number of businesses that are owned by women. So we knew it was going to happen in Georgia, but it happened all across the U.S. too. It's not just Georgia, but Georgia, we're still leading the pack with women-owned businesses. And so that was the catalyst behind me no longer running into the belly of the whale. Just go ahead and get her done. I got her done.
I love that. And on the back of the book, it says, from hustling to holdings, build, protect, and pass on what you've worked so hard to create. That's so powerful, Sybil. We've been working so hard. I don't care if you are an entrepreneur that is a service-based business or you have a product. That is your creation. That is your intellectual property. Those are your trademarks, your patents, your creative genius. So, yes, it has value. Those websites are digital assets. Yes, those are seeds that you have planted so that you can watch the fruits of your labor later on, right? That's more so in that succession planning, which is also a part of wealth building, Sybil. So,
Yes.
as we continue the conversation about this mindset shift, right? The conversation, we're going from hustling mindset. Tell the people what they should know about that thought process. How do we shift and pivot?
So here I want to back up to a definition, right? A lot of times we use income and wealth kind of interchangeably. Income is what takes care of you while you're working. Wealth is what takes care of you when you're no longer working. So if we never flip that switch from chasing income to actually building wealth and legacy, then when we're no longer working, we have nothing left. And so for me, switching the mindset to ownership and stewardship, creating value in your business versus working until you die and the business close. So now there is no one to sell the business to. You may have had a key employee, you may have had a family member you could have transferred it to, but we work until we close the business. So we have no way to extrapolate any of the value that we put in the business. And if, in fact, we didn't keep our financials together to show that we had value and built value in the business over time, then we really don't have anything to transfer. We just created income for ourselves. So again, creating that enterprise value all the way up to the point, as you mentioned a moment ago, to where we have an actual succession plan where the business is transferred inside of an estate plan to someone else. Now you have the value from the business that supports you now that you're no longer working. All of this is a part of an ecosystem. We may think our one business does not matter, and I can go to some stats in a moment, and I'll try not to because I know we're short on time. But the end of the day, we're part of an ecosystem. So even if you're a solo business, your business still matters. You know why? Because there are some vendors or suppliers that you are buying from that also may have staff. And so the minute your business closes, now you're impacting the employees that work for your vendors. We're part of an entire ecosystem. Every job that is created as a result of us having a business matters. And then when it comes to women, we create over 500 and something billion in revenue, 40 something percent in GDP. Our businesses matter. So I definitely want to bring that home. So don't just feel like, oh, this is just a hobby, a quick way to make money, blah, blah, blah. Again, we're impacting our communities if these businesses that previously served us now have to close. These vendors that may have been our vendors, right, that help to support our business now have to close. There's a ripple effect in our community. The jobs that are created out of our businesses or out of those that we are strategic partners with, they all matter. It's a part of the ecosystem.
I love that. And I appreciate you so much for sharing that. So, what I would like you to do is tell us, how do we start? Some people don't even know where to begin, how to begin, who to begin with. Can you just share with our audience? And whether or not it's in the book, it's on the website, it could be just call me Sybil Slade. How do we get started? Okay. Give the entrepreneurs
Yes.
expert knowledge, please, Sybil.
Right. So I'm going to do some shameless plugs here. So one thing I did not say is that I'm the vice chair of the board for Access to Capital for Entrepreneurs. And so that's a community development financial institution that provides loans to entrepreneurs and businesses that banks can't or won't. And so if you're in startup phase up to mid-size, that's a great place to start. There's also G.E.E.K, which is Georgia Micro Enterprise Network. Unfortunately, I'm naming Georgia entities, but trust me, in other states, they're very similar outfits. And I'm happy to help you find the right outfit for you in your state if you're not here in Georgia. But Georgia Micro Enterprise Network, that is for the people who are really starting up all the way up to, I'd say, a small size business. There's opportunities there. So this is where you can actually get some free quality training to develop your business plan and help to pull all the pieces together for you to ensure that you have properly launched and you don't have to do so much backpedaling or bumping your head in places that you didn't know exist and should have known. So that is, I would say, where to start. Now, once you come up the ladder or up the ecosystem, then there are people like me or other professionals who work with small business owners, whether that's your CPA, whether that's, in my case, a financial advisor. There's others who can assist you. There's small business coaches. There are a lot of things out there in the ecosystem. You have the Small Business Development Center. Most universities have one of those on campus. There's also SCORE. These are retired executives who are helping small business owners. I do believe in investing in yourself. So there are valid business coaches out there. If you're in midsize, that may be where you need to start. But there is a space and place for everyone, depending on the age of your business, the maturity of your business, whether you're startup, or there's accelerators for those who are in growth mode, and then those who are mature businesses, there's programs as well. So you can reach me at sybylslade.com and fill out an inquiry form if you're not aware of any of these players in this ecosystem, and I will be happy to direct you in the right direction to ensure that you have all the things that you need. Especially in this environment, we need our businesses to be able to thrive.
I agree 100%, Sybil. Thank you so much for that information. Those are great resources. I also have talked to people about SCORE mentorship. SCORE is a part of the Small Business Administration. You can also go to your local chambers of commerce. There are a number of them in the metropolitan Atlanta area. I'm sure within your greater metropolitan area, wherever you may reside. And for our audience, I also want to mention, sometimes you do have to use your social media connections and go on these various platforms and use those keywords. If it is financial planning that you're looking for, search among your connections first. People may have switched careers and pivoted, and you don't even know about it, right? So over the years, a lot of my connections have gone into the insurance business. And guess what? Part of insurance is that life insurance, where they teach you how to build wealth with life insurance. So there are a number of ways to get started. There are a number of connections to help you get started. So I want my audience to make sure they know we are absolutely a resource that you can get connected to. And so that's from hustling to holdings. I love it, Sybil. Everybody needs to get a copy of this book. And if you are done reading it, then gift it to the next person and keep paying it forward. That's something that I've learned how to do, especially in my resource library, right? You read that one book, you get your few nuggets and takeaways, and then you pass it along and share it, or you buy another copy for that other individual that needs the information. Thank you so
Right.
much, Sybil.
No, thank you. It's a practical book. I mean, people from entrepreneurship to established businesses, even people who've exited businesses and went back to corporate have said, "My, I wish I had have had this book when I was
Exactly.
in business." So it's very practical. As I led with at the onset, I try to bring much more clarity to things that are somewhat complex. So it's a blueprint, and you can just dive in wherever you see your gaps and keep it moving. Resources are in there as well. So,
I love that. So I want to go back before the book because I didn't ask you about your writer's journey. How was it writing your book, Sybil?
oh, wow. So, that's my third book. So, let me just
Okay,
tell you that I've been a part of an anthology, and then I wrote one, I created one.
gotcha.
So, my journey with this book was, which we're so off script today with the questions, but this is fine. My journey with this book is I shared why I went ahead and hurried up to write it. But the reality is, there was a 5-month window where I had to dial back a bit and quarterback for caregiving. My mom broke her hip and had surgery. So I was quarterbacking all of the doctor's appointments, all of the care, all of these things. And I was frustrated because I couldn't do what I love to do, which is, run my business full throttle. And God said, you got something to do. You can write a book. You're supposed to be writing this book. So I sat and I wrote that book. So that's the journey to actually getting the book done and completed. That's the backstory. That's how I got it done. I don't know that I would have gotten it out in that window. I started on it in April. The end of August, it was done.
Yeah.
And I've sold over 350 copies.
I love that, Sybil. Congratulations. That is absolutely
Thank you.
amazing. And I apologize to our audience. I misspoke earlier in reference to Sybil's book. This is not her first author pen. So I do want everyone to go and visit Sybil's website to learn more about all of her books and her products and get to know more about everything that she is attached to, including the ace. I learn something new about you every time we get together, I tell you.
I
So
know. I
I
didn't know
just
you
love it.
didn't know that. Okay.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So as we conclude our conversation, I would like us to go into the forward conversation and what the future is going to be looking like. I know you've got some things coming up. I know you've got a few tricks up your sleeve, maybe some announcements you'd like to share. The floor is yours. Tell our audience, what can they expect from Sybil Slade in the future?
So, there is this thing where I will, continue to do what I'm doing in the space I'm doing around wealth management and helping with the small businesses. I have a few projects that I plan to build through AI. That I am in the space now where I feel that I need to do some building with AI. And again, this is really to help women who are executives, professionals, and entrepreneurs, getting into a space where they can be free to really capitalize on the wealth that they are amassing. And so there will be some offerings where there are some sister groups, very intimate type settings for sure. There will also be, I have some events that are coming up as well. So, in addition to me kind of creating these sister circles and these offerings, I will also be working on some proof of concept projects, which is actually helping small business owners to understand their KPIs and build business development. So all of these things are involving AI. So that's why I said this whole building using AI, leveraging it. This is the time and the season for all of us as women, people in general, to get on the AI wave, because it helps to leverage the knowledge that we already have, the expertise that we already have. And so we can reach further, we can go further. So when you're talking about scaling, AI needs to be a part of that. And it'll help with a burnout too, right? So we don't want to have any burnout. Now, in regards to actual events, this Saturday, I'll be at Fund Her Success inaugural brunch. I will be vending, so I have a table there. So you can stop by, get a copy of the book, or if you want to talk about anything, all things financial for your business or your personal life, I will be there. And I also will be receiving their first Sapphire Award. So there's an award. I will be honored at this event. So that is this Saturday. Unfortunately, it's sold out. So if you're coming, you can stop by the table. But if not, there will be other opportunities in the future where I will be out and about with some book signing, other events where I'll be promoting the book. But that's about it at this point in time. It's really about leveling up my business and my practice so I can better serve all these businesses that are out there and that are launching. A lot of people are in this dual economy, right? They have that W-2 income and they've started whatever that business is. And so I want to be there to help close the gap around their financial frameworks that they're using. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. I would like everyone to connect with Sibyl Slade at sibylslade.com. And you can find her on Facebook and Instagram at Sibyl S. Slade. Sibyl, our conversation, it just flew by. Again, I try to stay scripted, but the conversation always takes a turn when it gets juicy.
Yeah.
So I just want to just say thank you, right? I want to be respectful of your time and let our audience know that there's more, right? There's more to come because they can always simply connect directly with you and keep the conversation going. So thank you. Thank you for being my guest on this edition of Geek Talk. Please hold.
Thank you. And happy Women's History Month.
Thank you. Everyone, that is my very special guest, Sibyl Slade, here on Geek Talk, giving entrepreneurs expert knowledge. And we are wrapping. We have another episode coming up next week in the conclusion of our month-long celebration of Women's History Month. And I'm so thrilled, honored, and excited to bring these fabulous and amazing business owners to you as they share their backstories. They give you some of their knowledge and their expertise that will help you, motivate you, inspire you to do more, do better, and be the best version of yourself. So again, tonight's topic, all about wealth building. Get your financial house in order. Ladies and gentlemen, it is your time now. Get the resources that you need. Get that discipline that you need in check and do it with intention. Because guess what? You will see the fruits of your labor on the other side. Just give it time. I promise. This has been a great episode. I'm excited. We have more to come. So go on to your favorite podcast, listen to the replay, tag a friend, tell your business bestie they need to check out Geek Talk with Sabrina Lowery and Friends every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You all have a great rest of your day. Take care.